When he was first diagnosed, I was really paranoid that he was going to die. When we were told that he was going to pass away for 2 years, I thought I could prepare myself. I thought, well, if I can prepare myself that it's going to come, then it won't be so difficult when it does come. But now I know that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when it comes. You still don't believe that it comes.
He had a very rare neurodegenerative disease called Krabbe disease, and we were told on the day we heard the diagnosis that it was incurable disease, and also average life expectancy was only 14 months, is it?
Yeah.
And at that point, he was already 10 months old, and he was quite sick.
We were given the diagnosis that was a progressive degenerative disease, and they didn't know how long she'd live.
Graham was our third child, and he was born in February of '88. And he was immediately diagnosed with a genetic disorder, and that was very hard to deal with at the time. It probably took a year before we settled into any kind of routine and knew what we were looking at for his life.
Just missing having a healthy child, although we just embraced Brianne's problems because that was just embracing her, and that's what she was now, and we had to accept that, but that took some time to accept.
One of the hardest things at the time, and has remained one of the most difficult things since then, is that loss of opportunity, of potential, and the loss of the life and the experiences that we had dreamed of.
I think you always worry that your child will die, particularly when they have so many chronic medical problems. And we had several crises over the years, but certainly didn't end the way we thought it would come about. And you know, I think the hardest thing overall, if anything we had to deal with, was probably the horrendous pain that he was in towards the end.
Just to normalize it, and to be proud of him, and to be happy with the time that we had with him.
Graham's birthday, every year we have what we call Strawberry Shortcake Day, because he was tube fed. He didn't really eat a lot of regular food, but we served strawberry shortcake for his birthday one year, and he actually pounded the table wanting more, so that became his birthday cake every year.
When he was just diagnosed and the seizures weren't too bad, I didn't have a lot of patience. And things had to be done a certain way, and they had to be done my way. Well, Gary kind of changed all that. He taught me a lot of patience. And just accept life the way it is.
I don't regret the experience for a second. It was wonderful. I mean, when he was born, it was horrible. I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to us. And then over time you realize it's the best thing that ever happened to you, that only through Graham that we met these people and we had these experiences, and we had all these doors opened that we never would have passed through before without him.
So after Brianne died, for a long time it was quite a blur. The first thing I remember and the first thing I recall is coming home, and Rick and we pull up to the house, and we just sat in the car. It might have even been 10 minutes, and we just sat there. And we're like, what do we just go in? Like, there's no wheelchair, there's no diaper bag, there's no Brianne. You know, it was just like we didn't want to go back into our home. It was like our lives were so changed.
After Kai passed away, I kind of felt lost because my day was just 24 hours dedicated to Kai's care.
I found it almost impossible to function and to focus.
The grief was quite overwhelming. And the first few months especially was almost paralyzing.
But I would just find myself constantly slipping into just another world, just sort of a fog.
Another thing I found was just a loss of not caring for Brianne. She was a lot of work, but I just loved it.
It was really powerful grief, although we've been preparing for this since the diagnosis, but still it was such a big hit, and we didn't know. I didn't know how to deal with it.
First few days I was forgetting to breathe, and so I'd be walking around and I'd be gulping for air because it just, even that automatic function seemed to disappear. And I cried so much I had a headache for weeks. And just feeling like you're not connected to the world anymore.
I couldn't go past his bedroom because I felt empty. I felt empty, and I felt like I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
Because he was mobile on the floor, his wheelchair would sit like just inside the front door, and it was only like 3 weeks before the government wrote us a letter and said we want that back, and those kinds of attachments that are so much a part of him that you're not ready to let go of yet.
The first thing I realized when he passed away was I felt like I wasn't doing something, that I needed to be doing something. And I would remember, oh, it's 9 o'clock, it's time for Gary's medication. And I realized, that he was gone.
I should have been giving her medicine or doing something for her, and I couldn't, and it was just a horrible feeling. Just a huge loss.
Well, most of it was just the emptiness of not having him, what my purpose was supposed to be after he was gone. And a lot of times I felt like I was losing my mind. I couldn't remember anything. I was really concerned about my other son, Kevin. He's not much of a talker, and he kept it all in. And I was really worried about him, on how he was going to deal with all of it too, and just us as a family, how we were going to deal with his loss.
Experienced it in very different ways, and I don't really feel that either of us really knew how to help each other or how to help ourselves. And it was just so difficult.
I think maybe because I was Brianne's mother and primary caregiver that I was so involved in her life, the loss was just different for me. Because I was the one who was up with her and getting her on the bus and making sure her medicine was taken. Rick was at work. He was supporting us that way. And so I just felt such like a actual physical part of me was gone too.
I think it brought our family much closer together when he passed away. And Kevin was 10 years old at the time, and I remember him making me a card when I was on one of my days where I was having a bad day. and he made me a card saying, "It's okay, Gary's not gone, he's in our heart."
Because, as Hannah's growing now, she's 5, almost 6 now, and as she develops cognitively, she's starting to reprocess her grief and her understanding of what it all was.
I found when we told Kayla, that's another reason my heart was just breaking, because she'd had this best friend and this sister. Now what was she supposed to do? She's going to be by herself, of course with us, but they were so close. And it's hard. It's hard on the siblings. They're young. She was 6, but she was an old 6. Brianne's illness forced Kayla to grow up a little sooner than a lot of kids would have.
I was very concerned on the impact it would have on Kevin, not being able to do the stuff all his other friends were doing and having to say, well, you can't go today because Gary's sick.
It's impacted our marriage. For a while it was hard. The grieving is hard, and I really found it frustrating that we don't grieve in the same way or at the same time. Some nights when I was so sad and just all I wanted to do was talk about Brianne, Rick didn't want to talk about Brianne. So, and I took some counseling to get that was okay. And now that I know that is okay.
And I think it's afterwards where it's been far more difficult. Of, like I said, just not knowing. I mean, I knew how to support Chi while Kaya was alive. Take him and give him a bath every night and spend time with him and sing to him and clean his pump and do this and suction and when I had to, and clean the dishes and cook and do all the other stuff. It was so simple for me, and afterwards it's actually been not easy at all.
Yeah,
It's been,
I think it's very individual, the grief. Even though we share the same, son and passing, but still I think we feel the same, not the same way. It's just we're in a different, and like I said, the wave that hits you, and it comes in a different time.
There's just a numbness, and there's an unreality to it for a long time, and waves of grief, I guess, is the only way to describe it. Is that you would settle in and you'd be okay, and then one day you're driving the car and you just burst out crying and you have to pull over. And one day I was gardening and I just was flat on my face on the lawn, just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, and it's just something that changes gradually, that you still have that sadness for a long time, but those waves of grief that wash over you do take a longer amount of time in between.
The maintenance staff at the cemetery probably thought I was crazy because I was going there every day, but it was my peace. It was my way of saying, I took care of you so much every day. This is my little way of kind of coming here and talking to you.
It took a while, about 6 months, for the fog to lift. Where I'm really noticing changes when I just feel happier and I stay happy instead of judging that and saying, no, I don't deserve to be happy, because I know Brianne would want me to be happy. And so I catch myself more often trying to feel that joy, even if it's for a couple minutes, just to feel it. I found it hard to laugh for a long time and to actually feel that was okay. I felt guilty if I were to laugh. I felt that I shouldn't laugh because Brianne wasn't here. It was all Brianne was gone, and it was really hard for me to feel normal. We miss her every day. There's not a minute that goes by that I don't think about her.
I went back to work way too early, but at the same time, it really helped me because for some reason I really like working with special needs kids.
It's probably about 2 years, maybe 3 years after Graham died that I started to do some scrapbooking. And I found that that was very, very healing to pull out all those pictures and go through those pictures and look for sayings, little quotes and poems and things to add to the scrapbook, and being able to think about those pictures.
I think for me, my faith helped me a lot. I saw his death only as the part that he was on this earth, and now he's in a better place. So that doesn't mean he doesn't exist anymore.
Used to go out sometimes and just go out to be out with other people, and I said I can put on the mask that I'm coping, and I can go out the door, and when I come home I can take the mask off again and I can feel the way I really want to feel.
I found reading was very helpful for me. I was able to get given, a lot of people gave me books, and I went and bought my own books or went to the library and got books. And not just on grief, okay, it was on grief, but just to know what I was feeling was normal.
I found the friends that I made after Gary passed away really helped.
Some things that were said that weren't helpful to us were things like, well, now you'll have some time for yourselves, or you'll be able to travel, or you can do things with the other kids. That made us feel like he was a burden.
Some things like when people say she's in a better place, and I just shake my head, and I was very cordial about it, but no, the better place for Brianne was to be with us as a family.
I did have people, when he passed away, the day of his funeral, and even a few days after, some of them were my close family, that said to me, "Oh, he would have been better off if he would have died earlier," or, "Oh, you guys are better off now that he's gone."
I just wish people would talk about her more. That's what hurts.
I just got this feeling sometimes when people were uncomfortable around me and they didn't know what to say. So that wasn't very helpful.
I take Hannah to bed, and every night we say a prayer to Kai, but we just more or less talk to him and laugh and tell him what we did today and what we're going to do tomorrow and what's happening, and kind of have a joke and, how's it going in your world? And
We talk about him a lot in present tense.
He was a very joyous little boy. He was very happy. He was never unhappy that he had a disability. On his birthday, we have a picnic at Fish Creek Park, and we call it Strawberry Shortcake Day. So we invite family and friends, and we all have strawberry shortcake, and then we walk down to the river and we throw some rocks in the river and have a walk and have some laughs and remember.
He loved to play Nintendo, and they never had enough Nintendo stations in the hospital. And he could never play Nintendo properly. He just wanted to be on there clicking. And when he passed away, we thought it was a good idea to buy some Nintendo stations and some games, and donate it to the two clusters that he used to be on a lot.
It's amazing. I can still hear him laugh, that something funny will happen, something bizarre, and I hear this giggle out of nowhere, and I can visualize Graham slapping his knees and just laughing and laughing because it was silly.
we have Kai's pictures and his table that we made for him, and put flowers, and we light a candle every day, and we have his little plate and cup and dish that sit there, and when we make a meal, we, have it with him.
And on her birthday, this year, we did balloon release again. We had the whole family over, and we all went over to her school, to Kayla's school, where they've planted a lilac bush in Brianne's memory. And the neatest thing from that was we all put the website on these balloons and messages again, and I got an email from a gentleman in Saskatchewan, in a place called Lucky Lake, Saskatchewan, and he said her little balloon package rode with him in his tractor all day, and he could hardly wait to get home to look on the website. And he says he has a little girl that's 6, and he says he's never hugged his kids as hard as he did that night.